She moaned the name Grant in her sleep. That's how the night started. Not with a fight. Not with a suspicion. Not with a lipstick stain or a text message or a weird gut feeling. Just one word. A man's name. From her lips. At 2:37 a.m. And it wasn't mine. I was lying next to her, staring at the ceiling fan. Couldn't sleep. The room was hot, and we'd had an argument earlier about cilantro, of all things. She said I ruined the tacos. I said she could have cooked instead of scrolling Instagram reels for 45 minutes. But in that moment, I wasn't thinking about herbs or dinner or anything petty. I was thinking about Grant. I whispered, "Who's Grant?" She didn't answer. Of course she didn't. She was asleep, curled away from me, her shoulder twitching the way it always did when she was in REM. I stayed awake until sunrise. I didn't move, didn't touch my phone. I didn't even cry, not because I'm strong or anything. I just didn't know how. Next morning, she made coffee like nothing happened. Wore her robe, hummed Fleetwood Mac, kissed my cheek. She kissed my cheek. And all I could think was, how many times has she kissed me after thinking of someone else? I didn't say anything that morning. Or that afternoon. Not even when she asked what tie I was wearing to the party that night. She wanted to match, as if that somehow made us a team. But something inside me snapped when I opened the bathroom cabinet and saw the cologne she hated. The one she always said smelled like my dad, sitting at the front of the shelf. She moved it forward. Herself. She wanted me to wear it. Why? So I'd smell like someone she couldn't possibly be attracted to? I sprayed it twice across my neck. And smiled. Because now I had a plan. I wasn't going to confront her. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to accuse her of anything. But I was going to ruin the narrative she was clearly building, whatever fantasy version of her life she thought she could step into after the party. What she didn't know was, I already knew who Grant was, and I wasn't going to lose sleep over him ever again. But she was. The rest of that morning felt like a lie I couldn't stop telling myself. We were brushing shoulders in the kitchen like a normal couple. She was using the blender, talking about the rain forecast, about how we should leave early to find parking. I nodded, even smiled, and somehow didn't choke on my orange juice. But every word she said just sounded like static over a loudspeaker. Because I was still stuck on Grant. I didn't bring it up. Not yet. I didn't want to give her a reason to start rehearsing answers. I wanted real ones, raw, unscripted ones. And for that, I needed timing. So I let her lead. "Can you iron your shirt, babe?" she asked, dumping her protein shake into a mason jar like she was in a wellness ad. "Sure," I said, and I did. I ironed the shirt I'd worn to our anniversary dinner last year. She complimented it back then, said it brought out my eyes. This time, she didn't even glance. The invitation to the party was digital, one of those sleek PDFs with minimalist fonts and too many emojis. It was from her boss, Rochelle. The guest list had been shared in the group chat 2 weeks ago, and I still had it. I'd skimmed it then. But now I opened it again and read every single name. No Grant. Not even close. That meant one of two things. Either Grant was someone she was meeting after the party, or he was coming, but under another name. A +1. A friend. Someone she had just forgotten to mention, the way you forget to take out the trash for 3 days straight. I clicked on the link to RSVP, and to my surprise, the form was still editable. Most people had filled in +1. I guess bringing your partner was expected. But Megan? She'd RSVP'd alone. Not Megan and Lowell. Just Megan. I stared at that screen like it was a confession. My first instinct was to confront her right there in the kitchen, laptop in hand, screaming something juvenile like, "Explain this, you two-faced liar." But again, I didn't. Because her phone buzzed, and I saw the name flash across the screen. Gee. No emoji. No last name. Just one letter. I asked, calm as ever, "That someone from work?" She hesitated. Just half a breath, but enough for me to catch it. "Grant. From our gym," she said. "He's thinking of coming to the party. But he's not on the list," I replied. "He's Rochelle's friend. Long story. She said he could tag along." Oh. I pretended to go back to my coffee, but my heart was hammering like a jackhammer in a coffin. You ever feel your stomach fold in on itself? Like it's trying to disappear? That's how it felt hearing her lie, and knowing it. Because Megan doesn't even go to the gym anymore. Not since February. We rode to the party in silence. I let her do all the talking. She rambled about the DJ, the catering, about how Rochelle had booked a rooftop fire dancer because why not? I just nodded and smiled and bit the inside of my cheek until it bled. Outside the venue, she fixed her lipstick in the passenger mirror and said the words that felt like she was twisting the knife deeper, with flair. "Don't wait up after dinner. I might head somewhere after." She said it like she was discussing her dry cleaning pickup. And then she was gone, heels clicking, hips swaying, vanishing through the lobby doors with the confidence of someone who thinks they've already won. I sat there in the car, engine still running. And that's when I got the idea. If Grant was showing up uninvited, I'd be there waiting. But not as myself. Not as the clingy husband she pitied. Not as the guy she side-eyed during every boring office story. No, I was going to meet Grant face to face. And I wasn't going to do it alone. The moment she disappeared into that rooftop venue, I sat still for exactly 43 seconds. Not because I was frozen or stunned or trying to breathe, but because I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of turning around and seeing me chase after her like some lovesick Labrador. I wanted her to believe I had accepted it. The party. The after party. The man. The end. Then I drove away. Not home. Not to a bar. Not to some dramatic cliff like in the movies. I went to the Marriott 3 blocks away. Why? Because I had a reservation there under a fake name. Booked it that morning after I saw the purple napkin again. Yeah, the same napkin from the toothpick she tried to gaslight me about. I kept it. In a Ziploc bag. Like some pathetic exhibit in a trial I was building in my head. But this wasn't about evidence anymore. It was about leverage. See, what Megan didn't know was that I'd spent the last 72 hours doing something she never expected from me. Being methodical. She always said I was too emotional, too soft. That I felt things too deeply, like that was some kind of flaw. But she made a mistake when she thought my silence was weakness. I'd already tracked her text backups. She logged into her email on my laptop last month, never logged out. I didn't snoop at first. I swear I didn't. But when she started showering after gym class she never attended, I knew something was off. And that's where I found Grant. He wasn't from work. He wasn't from yoga. He wasn't from Rochelle's guest list. He was from an old friend's wedding, 2 years ago. A mutual friend I haven't spoken to since because Megan said he was toxic. Apparently, not too toxic for her to reconnect with 6 months ago. I found their first message. He sent a photo of the wedding after party, cropped just wide enough to show the two of them dancing. Megan wrote, "I forgot how tall you are." The texts evolved. Slowly. Subtly. At first, it was innocent, or looked like it. Then came the what-if jokes. Then don't tell Lowell texts. Then photos. Nothing graphic. Not yet. But intimate in a way that told me everything I needed to know. The angle of her knees curled on the couch. The wine glass beside her book. The way her shirt drooped off one shoulder like it had been pulled mid-laugh. So yeah, I knew exactly who Grant was before she ever said his name. At the Marriott, I changed clothes. I put on the shirt she said made me look like a divorced dentist. Bland, beige, forgettable. Then I walked back to the party. I didn't go through the front door. I came in through the kitchen. I had done some freelance work years ago for the venue, built a photo booth for their holiday packages. Still remembered the layout, still knew where the staff buzz-in door was. By the time I reached the side hallway that opened into the rooftop lounge, I saw her. She was laughing, head tilted back, one hand on a man's forearm, holding her cocktail like it was a prop in a magazine. And that man, that was Grant. He looked exactly like I expected. Athletic in a casual, smug kind of way. Hair that looked like it took an hour to make look messy. A blazer over a t-shirt, because of course. And Megan, she looked young around him. Like the girl I met 10 years ago, before rent and debt and shared calendars. Her smile didn't match her eyes, though. Not this time. Because when she glanced across the room and saw me, not storming in, not glaring, not shouting, but standing calmly near the bar like I belonged there. She blinked, and her smile cracked. Not completely, just enough. I lifted my glass in a mock toast, and she turned pale, because Grant didn't know who I was. But he was about to. The moment I walked toward the bar, I saw her reach for her phone. Not casually, not out of boredom. No, this was that frantic, thumb-shaking gesture that screamed damage control. But it was already too late. My calm walk across the floor had sent a ripple through her world, and she knew it. I didn't approach them right away. That would have been too obvious, too theatrical. I ordered a drink instead. Something expensive, neat. I wanted to look relaxed, collected, like I belonged there. I wanted Grant to see me before he understood me. Let him think I was some investor or consultant or new guy at corporate. Let him feel the edge of the blade before he realized it was meant for him. And sure enough, it didn't take long. He clocked me from across the room. I watched him lean into her, whisper something, probably asking who I was. Megan shook her head too fast, smiled too wide. That kind of panic-glued smile that looks perfect from 10 feet away, but falls apart under scrutiny. Then he started walking toward me. Of course he did. He looked like the kind of guy who'd been validated his whole life. Private school handshake confidence. Probably thought I was some awkward ex or jealous work rival. Maybe even thought this would be fun. I didn't move. I took a slow sip. Let him come to me. He offered his hand and said, "You must be the husband." I tilted my head slightly. "Depends which one you mean." He gave this half-chuckle like I'd just made a clever joke. But his eyes flicked, first at my glass, then my wedding ring, then at Megan in the background, who was frozen near the ficus plant like a mannequin with a secret. "I'm Grant," he said, as if that would explain everything. "Oh," I replied, drawing it out, "you're Grant. I've heard a lot about you." "Well, not at first, but lately." That's when his mouth twitched. "Sorry, I don't think we've met," he said, but now his tone was lower, less amused, like he finally smelled the gasoline in the room. "Oh, we haven't," I said, then leaned forward slightly. "But you've definitely met my wife." He blinked. No denial, just the sound of gears grinding in his head. To his credit, he didn't immediately crumble. He turned to look at her, a full-body glance, as if hoping she'd deny it all, laugh, say, "No, this is my cousin, Lowell, he's weird." But she didn't. She just stood there, clutching her drink like a lifeboat. I stepped past him, walked directly up to her. I could feel the room tightening. The people nearby weren't sure what was happening yet, but their conversations had slowed. Eyes were drifting. Heads were angling. "Megan," I said gently, "you have lipstick on your teeth." She opened her mouth, confused, reflexively checking with her tongue. And that's when I handed her the napkin. The purple one. Folded, neat, preserved. She looked at it like it was radioactive. "I kept it," I whispered. "Isn't that sweet of me?" Her eyes darted to Grant, then back to me. She was trembling now. Not visibly, not like you'd notice in a crowd. But I could see it in the way her fingers tapped the rim of her glass. 3 short taps. Her nervous tell. I stepped back and raised my glass toward the room. "To secrets," I said loudly. "They don't age well, but they sure do burn on the way out." Someone laughed. A woman near the wine bar. Not because she got the joke, but because she thought it was some weird toast. I turned on my heel and walked toward the elevator. I didn't need a scene. I didn't want shouting or tears. I didn't even want an explanation. Because the best revenge wasn't public humiliation. It was confusion. Let her spend the night wondering what I knew. Let her guess which parts I'd seen. Let her try to rewrite the timeline in her head. Was it the texts? The emails? Did someone tell him? Was it the location tracking? Let Grant wonder if I was dangerous. Or petty. Or both. Because as I rode that elevator down, I was already setting the next phase in motion. One that didn't involve confrontation, but extraction. From our marriage. From our mortgage. From the world she built on top of my loyalty like a throne. And she'd never see it coming. I didn't go home that night. And I didn't answer her calls, either. She tried 3 times before midnight, then sent a text at 12:44 a.m. that simply read, "Please don't do anything stupid." It was the most honest thing she'd said in months. Because she knew that what I'd done at the party wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something she couldn't script her way out of. And for once, she had no idea what was coming. I'd already packed half my things the night before. Quietly. Systematically. The kind of packing you do when your hands are steady and your stomach is hollow. I left the essentials, phone chargers, shoes, boring sweaters. The things she'd expect to see. Because I didn't want her to know I was leaving. I wanted her to feel it. To notice the absence, slowly. Not with a slammed door, but with a haunting echo. My name disappeared from the mailbox by 9 a.m. the next morning. The landlord was a friend. A good man. I'd helped him rewire his basement 2 winters ago. I called in a favor, paid for a nameplate replacement in cash, and told him not to mention it if Megan asked. She texted again that afternoon. "Where are you?" No emojis this time. No smiley faces. No softening punctuation. I didn't respond. Instead, I changed all my passwords. Every bank, every streaming account, every shared calendar. I logged her out of everything. Left her digital breadcrumbs, though, just enough to see I'd been there. Like digital fingerprints on glass. She called my sister. My sister didn't answer. She called my mom. My mom did answer, but didn't tell her anything, because I'd already warned her. Mom was quiet for a moment on the phone, then said, "Maybe he's tired of being second." That one made Megan hang up. 2 days passed, then 3, then 6, and somewhere in that stretch of silence, Megan broke into my email. She guessed the recovery questions, which, of course, were all about her. Her favorite flower, the street we met on, the name of the hotel we first vacationed at. I let it happen, because the email I left open on purpose had something waiting for her. A PDF, 1 page, a notarized legal draft of my withdrawal from our joint mortgage, dated, signed, and filed with the county office. It wasn't a divorce yet, but it was enough to split our credit, enough to signal the end of ours. Attached was a second document, a lease agreement. My new address, studio apartment, 1 bedroom, 2 blocks from the park where I used to walk our imaginary future kids. She showed up there on day 7. Didn't knock. Just stood at the door with rain on her jacket and her makeup starting to bleed under her eyes. "I didn't cheat," she said, voice shaking. "I didn't invite her in. I didn't sleep with him." I stayed silent. She looked down at her hands. "He kissed me once. I let it happen, but I swear that's all it was. I felt invisible. I could have yelled. I could have laughed. I could have screamed about all the lies she wrapped around that one kiss like tinsel on a corpse. But instead I asked, 'Then why did you RSVP alone?' That made her flinch. I didn't know if you'd want to go. So you decided for me?" She had no answer. Just a shrug that looked more like a confession than anything else. I stepped outside, closed the door behind me. I didn't want her in the apartment. It was too clean, too quiet, too new. "Megan," I said, "you chose distance a long time ago. I just finally stopped dragging us back to the middle." She reached out to touch my arm. I stepped back, not to be cruel, but because this wasn't a movie. This wasn't a romantic reconciliation on the street in the rain. This was reality. And reality meant she didn't get to cry her way back into a home she'd already emotionally evacuated months ago. "Please," she whispered. "Please don't leave like this." I looked her in the eyes for what felt like the first time in years. "I already left, Megan. You just didn't notice." Then I walked back inside. And this time, I locked the door. It started with flowers. Not from me, of course. I don't do cliches, not anymore. But from her. Left outside my door in a wrinkled grocery bag with a single sticky note tucked between the stems. It read, "I made a mistake. I see that now. No signature. No perfume. Just blue hydrangeas. The flower I once said reminded me of her eyes." That was back when she still looked at me when we kissed. I threw them out without reading the note again. But I won't lie. I stood over the trash can for 5 minutes before dropping them in. It's the kind of quiet manipulation only someone who knows you inside out can pull off. Not a grand gesture, just enough to poke at your foundation. 3 days later, she knocked. This time without mascara. No makeup at all. She looked tired in a way that makeup couldn't fix. Her voice didn't even try to be soft. "Can I come in?" "No. I need," she began, but I raised a hand. "You don't need anything from me." She hesitated, then nodded like she understood, like she'd finally come to terms with the damage. But what she said next made it clear she was still in the bargaining phase of grief. "I've started therapy." I stared at her. Blank. "I thought it was just distance," she continued. "I thought we'd grown apart, and I blamed you for all of it. I stopped seeing how much you were caring for both of us. I stopped listening to you, even when you were silent." I waited. "But Grant, he wasn't who I thought he was," she admitted. "He doesn't ask questions. He doesn't care about anything except how I make him feel. You always asked." Still I said nothing. She stepped back, fidgeting with the hem of her sweater. "Do you hate me?" "No," I said calmly. "I understand you. That's worse." She looked gutted. That's when it started, the unraveling. Not of our marriage. That was already over. But of her. Over the next week, I learned things I hadn't planned for. Like how her boss Rochelle had found out about the party. Apparently, someone, not me, had submitted an anonymous complaint about employee conduct and inappropriate guest invites. HR had launched an internal investigation. Grant wasn't just some fling. He was someone from corporate, someone above Megan's position. I got the call from my friend Elijah, who still worked at the same firm. He was vague, careful, but the tone was unmistakable. Whatever happened at that party made a bigger mess than anyone expected. By the end of the week, Megan was placed on leave. Pending review, they said. Grant had gone radio silent. Word was, he was handling things privately. I sat at my desk reading the news of another layoff round when I got her email. No subject line. Just 5 sentences. You were right. I chose attention over trust. I thought the problem was the quiet. But the problem was me. I'm sorry. For a moment, I thought of replying. Not with anger. Not with forgiveness either. Just with the truth. But then I remembered something she said during one of our last fights. Something small, something easy to forget. You always wait until things fall apart to speak up. It's like you enjoy suffering. Back then, I tried to defend myself. Told her I wasn't a martyr. That I just didn't want to make everything worse. But she wasn't entirely wrong. I had let things rot in silence for years. But not anymore. Now, I was quiet for a reason. Because peace is louder than begging. And she was finally hearing it. They don't tell you that being right still hurts. That knowing you saw it coming, that you planned for it, doesn't mean you sleep any easier. I was back in my apartment, sitting on the floor with half a pizza and a warm bottle of water, staring at the blinking cursor on an email I wasn't sure I wanted to send. It wasn't to Megan. It wasn't even about her. It was to our marriage counselor, the one we stopped seeing last year because, according to her, he asked too many invasive questions. I was writing to thank him. Not sarcastically. Not bitterly. Just truthfully. Because the man had tried. He'd asked her things I was too afraid to ask, like, when did you stop being honest with each other? And why are you fighting for the memory of this relationship instead of the present? At the time, I hated hearing that. But now I lived in that sentence like a second skin. Megan had gone quiet. No more texts. No more emails. Just digital silence. And yet, somehow, she was everywhere. I'd see a gray SUV and wonder if she was behind the wheel. I'd hear someone laugh in a grocery aisle and feel my chest seize for no reason. Trauma doesn't need logic, just echoes. But then something happened I didn't expect. My landlord texted me. Said a woman had come by asking for me. Said she looked pale and nervous and left something for me if I was okay receiving it. It was a journal. A real one. Leather-bound. Warped at the corners. I recognized it instantly. It was one I gave her 4 Christmases ago, when I still believed in writing down your thoughts instead of bottling them up like toxic gas. I almost didn't open it. But I did. It wasn't a diary. Not really. Just short thoughts. Fragments. Sometimes only a sentence a day. But every entry was stamped with a date and an emotion. And as I flipped through them, I began to understand something I wasn't prepared to see. She had been documenting her guilt in real time. April 9th, I lied about going to yoga. I don't know why. I wasn't with anyone. I just didn't want to be around him. I feel awful. May 1st, he noticed the new blouse. Said I looked beautiful. I flinched when he touched me. That's on me. He doesn't deserve that. June 13th, Grant asked me to get drinks. I said yes. I shouldn't have. July 2nd, I keep hoping Lowell will yell. Break something. Prove he's still here. But he's too calm. Too good. It makes me feel monstrous. August 5th, the kiss wasn't accidental. I leaned in. I told myself it meant nothing. But now I can't sleep next to Lowell without feeling like a thief. September 10th, I told him I was meeting someone. The way he looked at me, it'll haunt me. September 12th, I think he knew long before I said anything. I think he waited, not out of weakness, but because he loved me more than I deserved. I stopped reading after that. Not because I forgave her, and not because I wanted her back, but because for the first time in months, I felt something real that wasn't rage or shame or numbness. I felt release. And that was the part nobody warns you about in stories like this. That even when the cheater admits it all, even when they spiral and suffer and fall apart the way you dreamed they would, there's no victory. No parade. No fireworks. Just a quiet, aching end. And you're left standing in it, the last man in a burned-down town, with nothing but your memory of who you used to be before trust became a puzzle with missing pieces. I closed the journal, sat with it on my lap for a long while. Then, for reasons I still can't explain, I slid it into my desk drawer. Not to revisit, not to torture myself, but to remind me of the man I refused to become again. The man who tolerated crumbs. The man who begged for love that had already been spent elsewhere. That man was gone, and in his place, a new one was slowly taking shape. Autumn came early that year. The leaves outside my new apartment began turning a brittle gold by mid-September, like even the trees wanted to shed something before it collapsed under the weight of rot. I watched them fall from my window in the mornings, coffee in hand, no noise, no rush. Silence had finally become a friend, not a sentence. It had been 3 weeks since I read the last page of her journal. She hadn't reached out since. I didn't either. I think we both understood. Sometimes closure doesn't come with a final conversation. Sometimes it's an absence that speaks louder than any apology could. And in that silence, I had started rebuilding. Nothing dramatic, just small things. I repainted my walls. Got rid of the dishes we bought during that dumb Black Friday sale 3 years ago. Took the couch cushions to a cleaner because they still smelled faintly like her shampoo. Started walking again. Not for exercise, just to remember what it felt like to move without dragging my soul behind me. One Thursday, I saw her again. Not in person, on a screen. A friend forwarded me a video from a local business webinar. Megan was speaking on a panel. Her hair was shorter. She looked thinner, more tired, but clearer in the eyes. Like someone who had touched rock bottom and scraped her way back without shortcuts. I watched all 12 minutes. Not because I missed her. Not because I wanted to punish myself. But because I wanted proof that we'd both survived it. At the very end of the panel, someone asked her, "What's one thing you'd tell your younger self?" She hesitated, then said, "Don't assume loyalty means silence. And don't confuse someone's gentleness for weakness." My chest tightened. She wasn't looking into the camera when she said it. But somehow, I felt seen. I closed the laptop, exhaled, and finally, it didn't hurt anymore. A month later, I met someone new. Her name was Elise. She didn't look like Megan. She didn't act like Megan. She asked questions that didn't feel like traps. She didn't flinch at honesty. She didn't need saving. And best of all, I wasn't trying to prove anything. I told her early on, over coffee, that I'd been through something messy. She nodded like she understood. And then, without asking for details, she said, "Everyone has a before. I'm more interested in your after." That stuck with me. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't stuck in rewind. I was building an after. And the truth is, I never needed Megan to say the perfect words. I didn't need a grand apology, or dramatic regret, or a miserable ending on her side to validate mine. All I needed was to walk away, and mean it. Not to hurt her, not to win, but to choose myself. And this time, I did.